The stars were quiet. Too quiet. On the edge of the Orion sector, the human mining colony of Arden 9 hummed with life. Machines drilled endlessly into the planet's crust, and lights flickered across the settlement like fireflies. Most of the colonists were used to the lonely silence of deep space, but tonight felt different. Something restless moved through the darkness beyond their shields. Dr. Elena Voss walked through the corridors of the research station, her fingers tracing the edge of her datapad. She had been studying unusual energy readings for weeks, signals that seemed to come from nowhere. Tonight, those readings spiked, glowing brighter than anything she had seen before. She frowned. "This isn't normal," she whispered to herself, her voice echoing in the empty hall. Outside, the stars shimmered, but there was a shadow moving between them. A ship, massive and unlike anything humanity had seen. Its hull was dark, almost invisible, reflecting the starlight in strange patterns. The colonists had always known they were not alone in this sector. The Zytrax, a proud and arrogant alien race, had long looked down on humans as weak, slow, and incapable. Yet no one expected them to appear here, so suddenly, so boldly. Elena rushed to the observation deck. She pressed her hand against the glass and watched as the ship's lights blinked in a deliberate rhythm. Her stomach turned cold. Something was happening, something dangerous. Her communicator buzzed urgently. "Dr. Voss, report to the command center immediately." It was Captain Riker, a stern man with little patience for fear. In the command center, the room was alive with panic. Screens showed the Zytrax vessel slowly moving into orbit. The humans tried to signal it, but there was no response. Instead, a loud, distorted voice boomed from their speakers, filled with arrogance and mockery. "Humans, your small minds cannot understand the universe. Step aside, or you will be crushed." The crew froze. No one had expected such bold words, so close to their home. Elena's fingers trembled as she scanned the ship's energy patterns. The readings were far beyond human technology. "Captain," she said, "they're experimenting on something. Their energy spikes match no weapon I've seen. They're testing humans." The room fell silent. Captain Riker's jaw tightened. "Then we alert Earth. They cannot do this. Humanity will not tolerate it." Before anyone could act, a blinding flash erupted across the colony. Machines exploded, lights went out, and alarms screamed. The ground shook violently as the settlement rocked from the impact. Elena was thrown against the wall. The entire command center shook as if the planet itself had been struck. When the lights flickered back on, the screens were dark. Communications were dead. Panic erupted. People ran, trying to find family, friends, anyone. The Zytrax ship had vanished as mysteriously as it appeared, leaving a trail of destruction. Amid the chaos, Elena and a small group of survivors gathered in the observation deck. The night sky was calm again, eerily calm, hiding the terror that had just passed. Captain Riker's face was grim. "They want fear. They want us to think we are helpless," he said, his voice low but steady. "But we are not. Humanity has survived worse. And we will survive this too." But the fear lingered. Whispers ran through the survivors. Some talked about the experiments, about the way the Zytrax had watched them like insects. Others spoke of the shadows they had glimpsed, strange shapes moving along the edges of the colony, and strange energy pulses that made their heads ache. Elena stood at the observation deck once more, staring into the void. Her mind raced. If the Zytrax had attacked a small colony without warning, what would happen to Earth? To the entire human expansion in the sector? Her heart pounded as a sudden thought hit her. The Zytrax were not just arrogant, they were dangerous beyond imagination, and their reach might already extend further than anyone knew. She turned to Captain Riker. "We need to warn Earth. We need to prepare. If this is just the beginning." Her voice trailed off as she realized the full weight of their situation. Outside, the stars glimmered innocently. But deep in the darkness, the Zytrax fleet stirred, watching, waiting. They had underestimated humanity for too long. The humans of Arden 9 had survived the first strike, but the message had been clear. The galaxy had just become far more dangerous, and the Deathworlder fleet would soon have to rise. Elena clenched her fists, determination burning through the fear. "They think they are untouchable," she muttered. "They don't know what humans can do." And somewhere, far beyond the stars, A single signal was sent across space. A signal that would reach the ears of every human warship, every colony, and every fleet commander. The message was simple, clear, and chilling: your time is up. The quiet of space returned once more, but for the humans of Arden 9, nothing would ever be the same. They had glimpsed the arrogance of the Zytrax, and they had felt the first spark of war. The message had traveled fast. Across the human colonies, across the deep star lanes, alarms flared and fleet commanders scrambled. The Deathworlder fleet, humanity's most elite and fearsome force, prepared for war. They were legends in the galaxy, known for surviving impossible battles, adapting to any threat, and striking back when enemies underestimated them. On the bridge of the flagship Valiant, Admiral Kor stood silently, staring at the holographic display of Arden 9. The colony was in ruins, smoke rising from its surface like dark clouds. Small human ships were already arriving to rescue survivors, but the damage had been done. Kor's face was hard, like carved stone. "So the Zytrax have chosen to provoke us," he said, voice calm but carrying the weight of command. "Good. They will learn why humans are not weak." Lieutenant Mira Solon approached, holding a data tablet. "Admiral, the Zytrax ship we tracked, it is just one. Our sensors detect signals of a fleet gathering beyond the Veil Nebula. They are larger than we expected. This could be more than a strike. It could be an invasion." Kor nodded slowly, his eyes narrowing. "Then we prepare for more than a strike. We prepare to defend humanity itself." Meanwhile, back on Earth, news of the attack spread like wildfire. Panic mixed with awe. Humans knew the Zytrax were arrogant, but seeing them strike so openly, so boldly, shook everyone. Governments activated emergency protocols, military academies moved reserves, and the Deathworlder fleet received orders to mobilize at full strength. On the Valiant, Kor moved through his crew, inspecting stations and speaking quietly to each officer. "We don't fight because we want glory," he said. "We fight because we must. Humanity will not bow. We will adapt. We will survive. And we will show them what Deathworlders can do." The fleet left faster than anyone expected. Ships streaked through hyperspace, leaving trails of light as they cut across the void toward the Zytrax gathering point. Tension ran high among the crews. Many were veterans of skirmishes, yet the fear of facing a superior alien race lingered. Lieutenant Solon studied the sensor displays. "Admiral, the Zytrax are taunting us. They are transmitting messages across subspace, calling us weak, slow, incapable. They want us to hesitate, to doubt ourselves." Kor smirked, a faint glint of defiance in his eyes. "Let them talk. Words are cheap. Let us show them that humans are not so easily intimidated." As the fleet approached the edge of the Veil Nebula, sensors detected movement. Shadows shifted among the stars. The Zytrax ships were massing in formation, hundreds of vessels glinting in the starlight. Their weapons pulsed ominously, and strange energy shields shimmered across their hulls. The humans studied them carefully. Every Zytrax ship was built for intimidation and brute force, but they lacked the flexibility and cunning that the Deathworlders prized. Captain Riker, now aboard the Valiant as part of the fleet command, spoke up. "They think numbers and firepower will be enough. They don't know what they're facing. We can outthink them. We can outlast them. We will show them what humans are capable of." Even as the fleet held its position, the Zytrax did not move. Their arrogance was evident. They wanted the humans to attack first, to make a mistake. They were confident, perhaps too confident. In the quiet moments before the storm, Admiral Kor gathered his officers. "Remember," he said, "humans have survived against impossible odds. Every challenge makes us stronger. Every attack sharpens our mind and our spirit. Today, we fight not just for Arden 9, not just for Earth, but for all humanity. Let them see what Deathworlders are made of." The crew nodded, determination replacing fear. Engineers checked weapons, pilots ran simulations, and every soldier braced for the coming battle. The tension was thick, almost tangible, as the stars seemed to hold their breath. Then, a flicker on the sensors. One of the Zytrax ships broke formation, moving toward a nearby asteroid cluster. A probe. A trap. Lieutenant Solon's brow furrowed. "Admiral, they're baiting us. This could be a test, or worse." Kor's voice was calm but firm. Then we stay alert. We strike only when ready. Patience and strategy will be our greatest weapons. Let them underestimate us. That is when we will show them our true power. The fleet moved forward, tension coiling like a spring. The Zytrax laughed over subspace channels, their arrogance almost palpable. But among the human crews, there was no fear, only resolve. For every ship in the Deathworlder fleet carried not just weapons, but the unshakable belief that humanity could survive, adapt, and prevail. As the first glimmers of the Zytrax fleet reflected against the nebula gas, the stage was set. Space itself seemed to tighten around the two forces, waiting for the first move, the first strike. And somewhere deep within the shadows, beyond sensors and shields, a silent pulse of energy warned that this battle would not be ordinary. It would test humanity in ways no one yet imagined. The Zytrax had started the fight with arrogance. Humanity would answer with strategy, courage, and the fierce, unyielding spirit that had carried them across the stars. The war had only just begun, and the first clash was about to decide who would claim the advantage in a conflict that could shape the galaxy. The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly, dotted with distant stars and swirling gases of the Veil Nebula. The human fleet moved silently, every ship tense, every crew member alert. The Zytrax had not struck yet, but their arrogance was evident. They hovered in formation, daring the humans to make the first move. Admiral Kor stood on the bridge of the Valiant, hands clasped behind his back. His eyes scanned the holographic display, showing hundreds of Zytrax ships moving with precise coordination. "Patience," he said quietly. "We wait for the right moment. They may have numbers, but we have something they cannot understand. Adaptability." Lieutenant Mira Solin's fingers flew across the console. Sensors indicate their energy weapons are charging, but they're not firing. They're trying to intimidate us. It's a test. Kor nodded. "Then we give them a lesson. Prepare the squadrons. Target their forward lines, and remember, we fight smart, not just hard." The Deathworlder fighters surged forward, their engines blazing as they formed attack wings. Human cruisers moved in perfect coordination, hiding behind the natural shadows of the asteroid clusters. The Zytrax watched, their arrogance growing with every cautious human maneuver. Suddenly, the silence was broken. A Zytrax destroyer fired its main cannons, sending a torrent of energy across the void. Explosions bloomed like deadly fireworks as the blast struck empty space. Human shields held firm, but the warning was clear: the first clash had begun. Captain Riker barked orders. "Return fire. Target their forward weapons arrays. Hit them hard and fast." The humans obeyed with precision. Beams of energy lanced through space, striking Zytrax ships with pinpoint accuracy. Small vessels were destroyed, their hulls torn apart, sending debris spinning across the nebula. The Zytrax were shocked. No human fleet had ever struck so effectively, so strategically. Their arrogance faltered for the first time. Amid the chaos, one Deathworlder frigate was caught off guard. A Zytrax fighter slipped through the human lines and locked onto it. Explosions ripped across its hull, sending alarms screaming. Crew members struggled to contain damage, and the ship spun violently, hurtling toward a nearby asteroid. Admiral Kor's voice cut through the comms. "Focus fire. Protect your own. Adapt and survive." The humans responded. Fighters swarmed the Zytrax attacker, forcing it to break off. Another squadron flanked a Zytrax cruiser, striking its weak points and crippling its engines. The Zytrax were unprepared for tactics that relied on flexibility and quick adaptation. Every human strike was calculated, every movement designed to exploit their arrogance. But the Zytrax were far from defeated. They regrouped, launching a wave of energy blasts that forced the humans to retreat behind the asteroid shadows. For a moment, the battle seemed balanced, a deadly dance of light and fire in the vast darkness. In the command center of the Valiant, Lieutenant Solin's hands flew across the controls. "Admiral, the Zytrax are trying to surround us. They've learned from our tactics. They're adjusting faster than we expected." Kor's jaw tightened. "Good. Let them think they have an advantage. Keep the fleet tight. Remember, patience and cunning win battles, not just raw power." The two fleets circled each other, probing for weakness, striking and retreating in an intricate game of strategy. Every human ship moved as though guided by a single mind, their training and instincts blending perfectly with technology. The Zytrax, though powerful, relied on numbers and fear, and every time they pressed, the humans adapted, turning their arrogance against them. Amid the skirmish, Captain Riker's voice came over the comms urgently. "Admiral! Sensors show a Zytrax warship moving faster than the rest. It's breaking through our flank." Kor's eyes narrowed. "Prepare interceptors. We cannot allow them to isolate our ships. Engage and slow it down, but don't overcommit. Lure them into the trap." The battle raged on. Explosions lit up the nebula like stars falling from the sky. Human ingenuity and courage clashed with Zytrax arrogance and firepower. One by one, the humans exploited small weaknesses, targeting exposed shields, isolated weapons, and overconfident pilots. Finally, a massive energy pulse rocked the battlefield. The Zytrax flagship, the source of their morale and command, took a heavy strike from multiple human cruisers. Alarms blared across its hull. For the first time, the Zytrax seemed uncertain. Their formation wavered. Kor looked at the fleet and nodded. "Hold your positions. They may regroup, but remember, we survive, we adapt, and we strike when they show weakness. This is only the beginning." Amid the debris of destroyed ships and the glow of distant explosions, a message flickered across human comms. It was short, but chilling. "You have survived your first test. The galaxy is ours to take." The crew stared at the message, tension mixing with determination. Humanity had proven it could fight, could adapt, could survive. But the Zytrax arrogance was far from broken, and the war had only begun. Outside the ship, the stars were silent witnesses to the battle. The humans of the Deathworlder fleet had survived their first clash, but somewhere in the shadows of space, greater dangers were already waiting, more cunning and deadly than anyone could imagine. And Admiral Kor knew it. The fight for survival had begun, and humanity would have to rise beyond what anyone thought possible. The battle had ended, but space was far from quiet. Debris drifted like ghostly memories of ships destroyed in the clash, glowing softly under distant stars. The human fleet had survived, but the cost was clear. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair damage, and medical teams tended to the wounded. Among the survivors, whispers ran about the Zytrax. What kind of enemies were these, and what could they possibly want with humanity? Admiral Kor gathered his officers in the command center of the Valiant. The room was tense, the air thick with worry and determination. "We held them off today," he said, voice firm. "But we learned little about what they are planning. To defeat them, we must understand them." Lieutenant Mira Solon tapped her tablet. "Admiral, we captured one of their smaller ships during the battle. It's intact enough for us to interrogate the crew." Kor's eyes narrowed. "Good. Bring them in. Quietly. We need answers, not more fights." In the holding chamber, the captured Zytrax officer glared at them, pride and arrogance clear even in defeat. Its eyes were slitted, green, and cold. Yet, beneath the haughty expression, there was fear. Kor noticed it immediately. The Zytrax may have been bold in battle, but the humans had survived, adapted, and struck with precision. "Why are you here?" Kor asked, his voice calm but commanding. The Zytrax officer's voice was harsh, distorted by translation systems. "Humans, insignificant. You survive by chance. We conquer. We are inevitable. You cannot resist the galaxy's natural order." Solon frowned. "They think they are invincible. But why experiment on our colonies? What is their plan?" The Zytrax officer hesitated. Its pride prevented it from speaking freely, but the humans pressed. Slowly, the truth emerged. The Zytrax had been conducting experiments on human colonies for years, studying human resilience, adaptability, and behavior under stress. They wanted to understand weaknesses, to predict how humans would fight in the event of war. Kor exchanged a glance with Solon. "They underestimated us. They studied us like insects and expected the same results they saw in other species. They didn't account for human ingenuity." The Zytrax officer's voice grew bitter. "You adapt faster than expected. This is inconvenient." Solon tapped her tablet again. "Admiral, sensors also picked up something else. Their fleet isn't just a strike force. They have something bigger planned." Energy readings indicate they are constructing warships far larger than any we have seen. This isn't a raid. It's preparation for invasion. Kor's face hardened. Then we must be ready. We survived their first strike, but they will not stop. Their arrogance blinds them, but it also gives us an edge. They believe fear and force will win. They don't know what humans can do when cornered. The captured Zytrax officer sneered. You think you are clever, but the galaxy belongs to us. Your fleets, nothing. Kor stepped closer, his shadow falling over the prisoner. We are not nothing. Humans survive. Humans adapt. Humans fight. And we will show you, Zytrax, that arrogance is dangerous. Never underestimate us. As the Zytrax officer was secured, the crew returned to the bridge. Solon studied the fleet status and reported, the Zytrax are retreating, but they are not defeated. Their communications are filled with coded signals, likely warnings to their main fleet. They are planning, regrouping, and preparing a larger assault. We have only delayed them. Kor nodded. Good. Delay is a victory in itself. But we must use this time wisely. Repair ships, train crews, and develop strategies. They may have numbers and technology, but humans have cunning, courage, and the will to survive. That is something the Zytrax cannot predict. Outside, the stars seemed calm again, but Kor knew better. Somewhere in the darkness, the Zytrax fleet was gathering strength, learning from its mistakes, and planning its next move. They had tested humanity and found it unexpectedly resilient. The humans of the Deathworlder fleet had survived, but the war was far from over. Meanwhile, scientists like Elena Voss analyzed data from the captured ship. Strange devices were uncovered, tools for manipulating energy fields, for testing psychological reactions, and even for probing human genetics. The Zytrax had gone further than anyone realized. They had been studying humanity, not for diplomacy, but for domination. Elena's voice trembled with a mix of fear and excitement as she reported her findings. They've underestimated human adaptability at every step. Every test they ran against us. We can learn from it, improve, and prepare for the next attack. We have an advantage they never expected. Kor listened, satisfaction hidden behind his stern expression. Exactly. They think arrogance makes them strong. They do not understand human resilience. That will be our weapon. The Deathworlder fleet moved through the nebula, ready to defend colonies, ready to strike when needed, and ready to face the Zytrax again. The first clash had revealed much, but the secrets of the enemy were just beginning to surface. Humanity had survived, and in doing so, it had earned a powerful lesson. Arrogance can be defeated, but only if humans stay clever, united, and fearless. And far beyond the nebula, the Zytrax fleet continued its preparations, unaware that their arrogance had sown the seeds of their own mistakes. Humanity had learned. Humanity had survived. And the galaxy was about to witness the full force of the Deathworlder spirit. The Deathworlder fleet moved cautiously through the dense asteroid field near the Orion Rift, their ships hidden among rocks and debris. Each vessel hugged the shadows, engines on low, sensors scanning for any sign of the Zytrax. The humans had learned much from their first clash and from the captured Zytrax ship. They knew the enemy relied on numbers, brute force, and arrogance, and they intended to use that arrogance against them. Admiral Kor stood on the bridge of the Valiant, his eyes scanning the tactical display. This is the perfect place, he said. The asteroids give us cover. The Zytrax will think they have the advantage. They will see a small fleet and attack recklessly. And then, he paused, letting the words hang, they will walk into our trap. Lieutenant Solon nodded. Sensors show their main fleet moving toward the sector, Admiral. They've taken the bait. Kor's lips curved slightly into a grim smile. Good. Prepare the interceptors. Weapons on standby. This will test every human crew's skill, every pilot's courage. The Zytrax think they are superior. They will soon find out otherwise. The fleet waited in silence, tension thick as the debris drifted slowly around them. Engineers monitored shields, recalibrated weapons, and checked every hull for even minor damage. Every human aboard every ship knew that one mistake could cost lives, but the Deathworlder spirit thrived on challenges. Hours passed. Then, distant sensors picked up movement. The Zytrax were coming, their formation tight and confident. From their point of view, the human fleet was small and vulnerable. The asteroid field was supposed to be a hazard for them, but their arrogance blinded them. They believed humans would hesitate, retreat, or surrender. Captain Riker gripped the controls of his cruiser. "They've taken the bait," he muttered. "Now we show them the cost of arrogance." As the Zytrax ships entered the asteroid field, human interceptors leapt from hiding. Small, agile, and fast, they darted among the rocks, striking quickly at exposed engines and weapons. Explosions lit up the darkness, echoing silently in the void. Zytrax pilots were forced to maneuver frantically, crashing into asteroids or firing blindly. Admiral Kor's voice cut across the fleet's comms. "Hold formation. Wait for the moment. Strike together." The Zytrax flagship moved closer, confident that it could crush the human fleet with its massive cannons. But suddenly, all at once, human cruisers and fighters surged from cover. Energy beams streaked across space, striking weak points the Zytrax had never anticipated. Their shields flared and faltered. Systems overloaded. Panic spread through their formation. Solin's fingers flew across her console. "Admiral, multiple enemy cruisers are crippled. Their flagship is isolated. We have a chance to hit it directly." Kor nodded. "Focus fire. Do not waste time. Strike smart, strike hard." The Zytrax, despite their arrogance, realized too late that they had been lured into the trap. Their fleet was tangled among asteroids, easy targets for the human fleet. One by one, their ships were disabled, forced to retreat, or destroyed. Explosions lit the void like deadly fireworks, and human crews cheered quietly, though the battle was far from over. Amid the chaos, Kor noticed something troubling. Sensors showed a smaller, faster Zytrax vessel moving behind the asteroid cluster, attempting to flank the human fleet. He barked orders. "Intercept. Don't let them isolate any ships." Fighters swarmed to intercept the flanking vessel, engaging in a deadly dance among the rocks. Laser blasts struck asteroids, sending sparks and debris flying. The smaller Zytrax ship was agile, but the human pilots were quicker, using knowledge of the terrain to their advantage. Within minutes, it was disabled, drifting silently among the rocks. As the dust settled, the Deathworlder fleet regrouped. The Zytrax had suffered heavy losses and were forced to retreat. The humans had won this battle, but Kor knew better than to celebrate. The enemy was still out there, watching, learning, planning their next move. He turned to Solin. "They think this was just a skirmish. They don't realize we can predict their arrogance, exploit it, and turn it into weakness. Humanity's advantage isn't our weapons, it's our mind and our will." Solin nodded, pride and relief mingling in her eyes. "They underestimated humans again. But next time they may come prepared. We have to be ready." Outside, the stars were calm once more, but tension lingered in the void. The Zytrax fleet had been humiliated, forced to retreat. Yet the message was clear: they would return, and the humans had only delayed the inevitable. Admiral Kor's gaze remained steady on the dark expanse. "Let them come. We know their arrogance. We know their weakness. And humanity never gives up." For the first time, the Deathworlder fleet felt a quiet, fierce satisfaction. They had turned the tables on a superior enemy, proving that strategy, courage, and unity could overcome arrogance and power. But deep in the shadows of space, the Zytrax were already preparing their next strike, determined to crush humanity once and for all. The trap had worked, but the war was far from over. And somewhere in the cold, distant stars, a new threat waited. A challenge that would test every human crew, every fleet commander, and the very spirit of humanity itself. The stars above the Veil Nebula were calm, but the human fleet remained alert. Though the Zytrax had been pushed back, their retreat was only temporary. Sensors showed them regrouping, repairing damaged ships, and preparing for a renewed attack. The arrogance of the Zytrax had not diminished. If anything, it had grown. They would return with more firepower, more numbers, and more cunning. Admiral Kor stood on the bridge of the Valiant, studying the tactical maps. "They will try to overwhelm us next," he said, voice low but firm. "We need to strike before they can regroup fully." Lieutenant Mira Solin tapped the console. "Admiral, we've analyzed the data from their previous attacks. Their energy shields have a critical flaw: they overcharge when targeting multiple points simultaneously. If we can manipulate the battle, we can exploit it. Core's eyes narrowed. Exactly. Prepare the fleet. We don't just fight with firepower, we fight with intelligence. Every human ship must know the plan. Timing and coordination will be our greatest weapons. The Deathworlder fleet moved cautiously, positioning themselves near the asteroid field, but this time the trap was subtler. Smaller ships and fighters acted as decoys, luring the Zytrax into a narrow corridor of space where the human fleet could strike together. The Zytrax, blind in their arrogance, believed the humans were disorganized, vulnerable, and weak. From the command deck, Solon reported, "They're taking the bait, Admiral. All units are falling into position." Core nodded. Good. Hold until the moment is right. Then a strike is won. The Zytrax advanced, their formation tight and confident. Their massive cannons charged, ready to tear through human ships. But the humans waited patiently, hiding in the shadows of asteroids, keeping their weapons silent, their engines nearly invisible. The first clash had taught them that patience could turn arrogance into a weakness. Suddenly, Core gave the order. Engage. Target their shield cores simultaneously. Energy beams erupted from every human ship, striking the Zytrax in perfect coordination. Shields flared and failed, systems overloaded, and explosions rippled through their formation. Panic spread among the Zytrax as ships were disabled one by one. They had never faced such precision, such unified tactics. The humans were not only surviving, they were dominating. Solon monitored the attack. "Admiral, the flagship's shields are failing. We have a direct path to strike its engines." Core's face was set with determination. "Do it. Hit it now. Show them what humanity can do when it fights as one." The human cruisers unleashed a focused barrage. The Zytrax flagship shuddered under the attack, its weapons flickering and systems failing. Smaller ships tried to assist, but the Deathworlder fleet had anticipated every move. Every maneuver, every strike, was calculated. Humans adapted faster than the Zytrax could respond. Amid the chaos, Captain Riker directed a squadron to intercept a group of Zytrax reinforcements attempting to flank the fleet. Laser beams streaked across the void, ships twisting and dodging with precision. Within minutes, the reinforcements were neutralized, leaving the main Zytrax fleet vulnerable. From the bridge of the Valiant, Core watched with grim satisfaction. They underestimated us at every turn. Their arrogance blinded them. Now they will pay the price. The battle raged for hours, but the outcome became clear. The Zytrax were retreating, battered and disorganized. Their confidence had turned into confusion, and their arrogance into fear. Humans had exploited their every weakness, using strategy, patience, and unity rather than relying solely on brute force. Solon turned to Core. "They've underestimated humans again. Their arrogance is their greatest weakness. We've proven that strategy and courage can overcome raw power." Core nodded, his gaze steady on the dark expanse of space. "Today, we showed them that humanity is not just a species to be laughed at. We survive, we adapt, and we strike when it counts. But the war is not over. They will return, and we must be ready." The fleet regrouped, repairing damage, tending to the wounded, and preparing for the next phase. Humans had gained a turning point, a psychological edge, and proof that even the most arrogant enemy could be challenged. Far beyond the asteroid field, the Zytrax fleet had suffered its first true defeat. Their arrogance was shaken, and their confidence diminished. They transmitted messages across subspace, warning other fleets, but the truth was clear. Humans had survived, adapted, and emerged stronger. Back aboard the Valiant, Core addressed his officers. "This is more than a victory in battle. It is a lesson. Never underestimate the human spirit. We have the courage, the intelligence, and the will to survive against any foe. Remember this. Humanity is ready for whatever comes next." Outside, the stars were silent witnesses to the battle's end. The humans had turned the tide, exploiting weaknesses that the Zytrax could not see. They had shown that resilience, strategy, and unity could triumph over arrogance and brute force. And somewhere beyond the edge of known space, the Zytrax were learning a dangerous lesson. Humans were not to be underestimated. The turning point had come. Humanity had revealed its strength, and the galaxy would never look at the Deathworlder fleet the same way again. The stars seemed calm, but the Deathworlder fleet knew better. The Zytrax were retreating, yes, but arrogance ran deep in their veins. They would return, more determined, more cunning, and more ruthless. Yet for now, humanity had claimed a hard-earned victory. Admiral Kor stood on the bridge of the Valiant, watching the scattered Zytrax vessels slip away into the void. "They think retreat is safety," he said, voice low. "But they carry the knowledge of their failure, and that knowledge makes them dangerous. We must remain vigilant." Lieutenant Mira Solon tapped the console, showing the status of the fleet. "All ships accounted for, Admiral. Damage is minimal compared to the enemy. Our strategy worked. We've proven that even their strongest arrogance can be broken." Kor nodded. "Yes, but remember this, today, they learned to fear humans. That is more valuable than any victory in battle." Across the fleet, crew members began repairing systems, tending to the wounded, and securing resources. Yet there was a quiet celebration among them. They had faced an enemy who had laughed at humanity, who had called them weak and insignificant, and they had survived. More than that, they had outsmarted the Zytrax, turning arrogance into a weapon against them. Captain Riker approached Kor, his face weary but proud. "Admiral, the Zytrax will regroup. They will come back stronger. But we've proven that we can meet them head-on and win. Humanity has earned their respect, if they are capable of it." Kor smiled faintly. "Respect is not something the Zytrax easily give. But they cannot ignore us now. Humanity has shown that we are not prey, not obstacles, but predators in our own right. They will think twice before underestimating us again." On the bridge, Elena Voss, the scientist who had first discovered the Zytrax experiments, analyzed data from the battlefield. "They underestimated human adaptability," she said. "Every tactic, every strategy we've used today has built their fear. They expected humans to falter. They expected weakness. But we adapted faster than they could imagine. They've learned that the Deathworlder fleet cannot be predicted, cannot be crushed easily." Solon added, "And that knowledge will make them cautious next time. Perhaps too cautious. We've gained a psychological edge that can be just as powerful as any weapon." As the Zytrax retreated, a transmission flickered across human comms. It was brief, almost reluctant. "This is not over. Humanity is resilient. We will return." The message was filled with their usual arrogance, but beneath it, fear and respect were evident. Admiral Kor turned to his crew. "They will return, yes. But today we have proven that humans do not break under pressure. We survive. We adapt. We fight. And we will continue to do so, no matter the odds." The Deathworlder fleet regrouped, moving in formation, scanning the stars for any sign of their enemy. Space was vast, and the Zytrax were clever, but humanity's resolve had grown stronger. Each ship carried not just weapons, but the indomitable spirit of a species that refused to be conquered. Captain Riker watched the stars with quiet pride. They thought arrogance would be enough to win. They were wrong. Humanity has shown strength, intelligence, and courage. Today, we are no longer just survivors. We are a force to be reckoned with. Elena Voss stepped beside him, her eyes reflecting the lights of distant stars. "And they know it now. Every move they make will carry the weight of this lesson. We've earned a reputation they cannot ignore. Humans are not to be underestimated." Admiral Kor looked toward the distant horizon, where the last Zytrax ships disappeared into the darkness. "The war is far from over," he said. "But today we've turned the tide. Humanity has shown that arrogance cannot match courage, that intelligence can overcome power, and that no matter how strong an enemy believes themselves to be, the human spirit will always fight back." The fleet moved onward, carrying survivors, carrying hope, and carrying the unshakable message that humanity had earned its place among the stars. The Zytrax had tested them, underestimated them, and suffered defeat. The galaxy had witnessed a force that refused to yield, a species that adapted to every challenge, and a fleet that turned every disadvantage into strength. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, the Zytrax would be watching, planning their return. But the humans of the Deathworlder fleet were ready. Their courage, their ingenuity, and their unbreakable spirit had been proven. The arrogance of their enemy had been punished, and the respect of the galaxy was theirs, hard-earned and undeniable. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, silent and eternal witnesses to the triumph of humanity. The war had begun, but humanity had already shown its power. And in that vast, unforgiving darkness, one truth shone brighter than any star. Humans never back down, never surrender, and never stop fighting.